Hey YouTube, it's Charlie from Reader Turned Writer, and today I am doing a writer's book review of Hope in the Mail by Wendelin van Draanen. Wendelin van Draanen is the author of Flipped and I think like 30 other novels, and I love Flipped. Flipped is one of my favorite novels from when I was younger, and I have read one other of her novels since then, since I found out that she had other books, and I really enjoyed it as well. Her subtitle really describes the book perfectly. It is Reflections on Writing and Life, and that is what this book is, and I honestly think that every writer should read this book. It's not a writing craft book. It doesn't lay out like a system that she has for writing or anything like that, but it does give some advice. It talks about some different writing tools from when you're writing and the actual writing that you do through to publication. She does give a lot of really good insights from her own experience. It was inspiring and funny, and I couldn't put it down, and I left it really excited to be a writer and experience my own writing journey. The book starts kind of explaining the title, Hope in the Mail. I love this concept and this idea with the book. I'm going to read some out of the book. She says, "Each time someone in New York would agree to take a look at my full manuscript, I'd make a copy of it, box it up, and stand in line at the post office. And when it was my turn at the counter, I'd give the box a little quick kiss for luck, pay the postage, and walk away with a little spring in my step. Outside, the world felt renewed with possibility. Things were going to change. We were not defeated. Hope was in the mail." I love that idea of hope in the mail, and she talked about how, because it took her 10 years, she says, "I put hope in the mail for 10 years, right after that, at the start of the next chapter." And 10 years is a long time to keep putting your book and your writing out there. I mean, your books, because she had multiple books that she was writing. That is a long time to be sending out manuscripts and getting rejections back. But she talked about how every time she'd get a rejection, it was okay because she'd already sent out another manuscript or, other things out there. So she always had that hope in the mail. She always had the hope that eventually one of them, maybe this one that's in the mail right now, would come back as an acceptance instead of a rejection. And I love that idea that we should always keep putting ourselves out there and just keep working at it as writers, because it's going to be a long road, and for some people it'll be shorter than others. But I think that for everyone it's a winding journey, and I love the idea of hope in the mail. I loved the idea of that in this book. A lot of the beginning of the book talks about her life and how her life, and this is threaded throughout, but she focuses kind of on her childhood and how her life and her parents helped teach her to persevere, and that was why she could continue to put hope in the mail when she kept getting rejections, is because she knew how to persevere and she knew how to stick with it. And a lot of the lessons that she learned from her childhood were able to help her with that, and that was really fun to read. As an aspiring author who has just finished her first novel, and I'm about to start querying and everything with it, it is so inspiring to me to learn about other writers' journeys to publication, because most of the time those publication journeys are not easy. I love hearing Brandon Sanderson talk about his journey. His was also about 10 years, and at that point he'd already written like 11 books or something. And Wendelin van Draanen, I don't remember if she says how many books she'd written, but it was quite a few before she got one published. I think she had 3 or 4 already in a series that she was able to publish kind of really quickly because she already had those finished. And it was 10 years for her as well of querying and putting books out there, and she just kept writing as she was doing it and putting the book out there and getting better and learning how to query and learning all of those different things. And that to me is so inspiring, because it helps me to see that I don't have to, on the first try, I don't have to have my first book published, which is good, because I'm still like on the fence about whether I should even send my first book out to people. I get, my book's not very good, I shouldn't send it to people. And so it's nice to know that if I do send it out and I get rejections on it, it's okay. I don't have to get my first book published. I don't have to get it right the first time. I don't have to get an agent right away. I can, as long as I keep trying, keep becoming a better writer, keep learning how the process works, keep iterating basically, then I am very confident that I will eventually get published. And I love hearing how other authors that I know and love, like I loved Brandon Sanderson's books before I ever heard him talk about how long it took him to get published, and blows my mind now, or like Harry Potter. You always hear how she got multiple rejections before they picked up Harry Potter, and like that blows your mind now, because Harry Potter was so successful. But at the time she must have had some doubt when she was sending it out and getting rejections. Wendelin van Draanen is like that for me, because I grew up loving the book Flipped, and I loved the movie and I loved everything about it. Then to hear that, you know, that she had growing pains, basically, that she had to, that it wasn't just easy for her to get published, it makes it a lot less daunting to me as an author to get published. Although I guess for some people it might be the opposite. They might see that and go, I don't know if I want to do that. But for me it's very encouraging because it shows me that I can make mistakes and I can take my time, and that's okay. And as long as I just keep doing a little bit every day and keep getting a little bit better every day, that eventually I will be able to reach my goals and my dreams. Back to the book. One of the wonderful things about this book is that even though it's nonfiction, Wendelin van Draanen is very much a storyteller. We have so many stories throughout that are super interesting, that relate or tell a story or are inspiring, and all throughout they pull you along to keep reading the book, and I love that part of the book. She shares a lot of personal stories, which makes her very relatable. She's very funny, very friendly, and accessible. Like I said before, it's not a craft book, but she does have a section called Writing, and in it she talks about different things like finding your voice, how to do setting, using your real-world experiences and drawing on those for your writing to make it stronger, just like creating characters and their backstory and all of those things. And she talks a lot about the actual craft, not in like a this is how you should do it, but kind of like a how it worked for her way. And she shares again a lot of stories in that are really interesting and very useful. I learned a lot from them. After she talked about writing for a little while, she dives more into what it is to actually be a writer, and that section was so good. Her story of perseverance is really inspiring. She woke up really early to write because she didn't have any other times. She was working, she was raising a family, she was, you know, just trying to survive in life, but she was also trying to find ways to make writing a part of her life, and she found ways to do that that worked for her. It was inspiring to see that. One of the things that I got out of this book, one of the biggest things, and this might be something that most people are like, yeah, that's pretty obvious, but for me it wasn't obvious. Because I sit down in front of the computer and I write, and when I'm brainstorming, I try and brainstorm with my husband sometimes, because when I sit down in front of a blank screen, I have a really hard time brainstorming. Well, when Wendelin van Draanen, because she didn't have a lot of time to just sit down in front of a computer, she would spend most of her writing time thinking about her novels and the problems she was encountering and the characters that she was getting to know and different things like that, while she was doing things like driving to the store or folding laundry or doing things that where she had to get those things done and she couldn't be at her computer, but she could still find time to work on her book because she could think about it while she was doing that. And that was like way crazy to me, because it's definitely something that I am having to teach myself, to like discipline myself to actually think about my books and stuff while I'm doing different things. But I loved that idea. It has made a huge difference for the brainstorming for my next project. I feel like I'm getting so many ideas just from doing that. And I always thought that I just wasn't good at brainstorming before, because I'd sit down in front of a computer and it would be a blank screen, and so then I'd be like, well, I need to brainstorm with someone else, and then I'd worry that their ideas were the good ones and that I just wasn't good at brainstorming. And you know, like I actually have a lot of imposter syndrome around creativity and brainstorming and coming up with ideas, and so this has actually really helped me, and as I have tried it, I've gained a lot of confidence from it. With the book though, I just loved the details that she shared about her life and the way that she presented it. It was very much in an, here were the problems that I encountered and here's how I overcame it, rather than like a victim mentality, and I loved that. It was very inspiring. Another thing I loved was when she talked about revisions, because revisions were one of the hardest things for her with the writing process, she says, and for me that was really a great reminder, because everyone has different parts of the writing process that they have a harder time with. I actually like the revision process more than the drafting process, but it was good to hear. It's just good to hear that other people have parts where they struggle too, that it's not just easy for everyone else because you're struggling, you know, and then you can know that you're normal and that it's okay, you can just push through. And she was very open about the struggles that she had with it, and she just said, I don't like editing as much, but I have to do it because that's just part of the process. And I think that's so true. If we don't push through the parts that we don't like, then we just won't end up with a book or a polished product, or it won't be as good as we want, or whatever it is. It was a really good reminder. Another really fun section is where she shares the ideas that she got for her books and how she got those ideas. It was fun to see her different processes and the ways that she came up with the ideas. She talks a lot about the different individual books that she wrote, and it was fun to see where she got the ideas for each and how they kind of grew and how different they were sometimes. The books that she talks about that I haven't read yet, because I've only read 2 by her so far, but now I really want to go read the rest because they all sound amazing and I really like her writing style. And the 2 that I have read, it was so fun to see kind of where they started. Her final section in the book is a fairly long one, and it goes pretty in-depth into kind of the publishing process and what it was like for her to publish her book, kind of behind the scenes. And that's always fun to see as an aspiring author. And since I want to someday get published, it was really interesting, but also actually really helpful because she had some insights. She talks about everything from editors to like conferences that you go to the finances behind editing, and she even shares a story about one of the disappointments that she had. I think it had to do with a cover or a title. I can't remember which one. She was expecting one and then it came in the mail and it was totally different, and it was a big disappointment to her. She didn't like it as much, and she just talks about how that's kind of how it is in publishing sometimes. It was really good to see kind of behind the scenes of what it might be like to actually get published. She does have one section, one short chapter at the end of the book talking about self-publishing. She obviously wasn't self-published. It was the one part of the book that I wasn't as impressed with. I understand that she is talking about self-publishing just as like a side note because people wonder about it, and that she's just coming from her own experience and what she's seen from people, and that there are a lot of people who self-publish who are not successful because they don't do it right and they just publish their book and then they have family buy it and no one else. And I understand that that's what she's seen a lot of, but I also know that there are a lot of methods that you can implement to make self-publishing more of a viable option, and there are a lot of great self-published authors here on AuthorTube who are teaching people how to do that and sharing their own successful journeys there. It's the one section that I didn't 100% go, yes, I love this. But this book on writing has been one of my favorites so far of the books that I have read. Even though it's not exactly like a how-to book or a craft book, it is full of just inspiration and good tips, good wisdom from someone who's been there. I really loved hearing her journey and being inspired by her, and I laughed out loud. There were parts where I teared up. I do cry really easily though. But I just thought it was a very well written book with a lot of really good information in it. Have you read any books by Wendelin van Draanen? What is your favorite book on writing? Let me know in the comments below. I love to hear from you. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe for lots of writing content. Thank you so much for watching my video. I will see you in the next one.